Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Jimena González Grandón from Universidad Iberoamericana Ciudad de México, and the name of my talk is Feeling Bodies in Motion and an Active and Ecological Perspective to Proprioceptive-Kinesthetic Perceptual System. This is the outline that I'm going to follow. First, I'm going to mention some aims. Then, what is the proprioceptive kinesthetic experience? I'm going to mention some disagreements about the explanatory role of the non-neural elements in real-time interaction. I'm going to propose a distinction following Wigmont between weak thesis and a strong thesis. Then I'm going to mention some enactive sensoriomotor approach and the proposal of this research that are the proprioceptive, kinesthetic, sensoriomotor contingencies. I'm going to propose a distinction between PKSMC self, PKSMC self-environment, and PKSMC self-other. My aims are, first of all, to provide a framework to understand how the proprioceptive and kinesthetic systems learns about body position and possibilities for movement in ongoing action and interaction. Weak embodiment accounts focus on positionalist descriptions, just that, or on its role as a source of parameters for internal motor control. We argue that these aspects are insufficient to understand how proprioception is integrated into an active, organized system in continuous and dynamic interaction with the environment, the ecological environment and the socio-cultural environment. Our strong embodiment thesis is that one of the main theoretical principles to understand proprioception as a perceptual experience within concrete situations is the coupling with kinesthesia and its relational constitution, self, ecological, and social. But what is the proprioceptive kinesthetic experience? I'm going to ask you to imagine something. Suppose you have just woken up and immediately you feel the presence of your body. Then, or maybe at the same time, you feel a body that is not yours cuddling you, and perhaps also the sheets that do not cover your feet, leaving them uncovered. Your own body experience is subtly transformed with each focus of attention as it takes on a distinctly ecological and social dimension. Both agents are sharing this proprioceptive and kinesthetic experience with each other. Can such embodied ecological and social interaction be part of an agent's proprioceptive perceptual experience? So, we describe this perceptual experience as depending on the awareness of the self-potential actions and interactions, abilities that an agent may acquire over a particular history of learning within a specific ecological and self-other environment. So, proprioception it's a perceptual experience. Here we can see that there's a lot of systems that are organized to afford that we have this kind of experience. For example, we need approximately 10% of visual perception, 20% of vestibular perception, and 70% of your skin and your Golgi and your spindles, your muscle spindles. So this is very important because you can see that it is a full experience that is relating all these systems together. Here is the vestibule. We have in the inner ear, here is a micrography. And of course, we cannot forget the visual system, but remember, the visual system is just 10% of this experience. So we found that there's a lot of disagreements about the explanatory role of the non-neural elements in real-time interaction. Alsmith and Wigmont proposed that the weak approach to body involvement are when mental representations in bodily formats play a central role in action and perception, while moving bodies in interaction, a non-brain bounded element, play just a trivial role. B formats are associated with muscular sensation as a physiological condition of the body and become crucial when they are centrally represented in the brain and instantiated in internal models. So there's a lot of literature about this. We are not going to deny this, but the thing is that we think this is not enough. Of course that the muscle spindles, of course that the Golgi tendon organ are very, very important, is this 70% of this perceptual experience, but it's not just that. Because if we are thinking that we are just going to make this reductionist explanation, we are falling a little bit in this homuncular fallacies. In contrast, a strong embodiment accounts, it considers the whole body in its dynamical, Gestalt-like relations with physical and social environments as non-neural elements that play a strong causal and constitutive role in perception and action. Perception is a bodily experience intimately linking to skillful and effective embodied possibilities for action. Proprioception is better understood coupled with kinesthesia as a proprioceptive kinesthetic coupling or system, a perceptual system that results from an active and ongoing coupling between feeling and performing. So we are talking about all this and in interaction with a world, with a social, cultural, and physical world. In this sense, we are putting our thesis behind this inactive sensoriomotor approach to understanding the mind. What is it supposed to mean? First, it's a non-reductive and naturalistic approach to study psychological processes as embodied, dynamic, ecological, and social-cultural interactions between autonomous agents and their environment. The mind is seen not as inherent in the individual brain, but as emerging dynamically continuous relationship between organisms and their surroundings, including, of course, other agents, because that is our human nature. Enriched with phenomenological descriptions. Here you can read this quote from Merleau-Ponty. And of course, your cognitive system, it is intrinsically relational, skilled and dynamic in nature. So it should be studied and understood in dynamic and situated terms. Those contrast sharply with traditional cognitivism and other forms of functionalism that conceive of cognition as information processing over internal representations. It grounds central concepts such as actions, sense, and agency in the autonomous organization of living organisms and in their meaningful engagements. So these proprioceptive, kinesthetic, sensoriomotor contingencies are skilled experiences. And following O'Regan and Noé, we introduce three varieties of this perceptual experience in action, in situated actions: PKSMC self, PKSMC self-environment, and PKSMC self-other. This first, the PKSMC self, is its sensibility, it is sensibility or awareness of its own musculoskeletal parts in relation to other parts of one's body and of their possibilities for action and interactions. These contingencies are described in this regard as involving the exercise of a bodily skill, the know-how of the systematic ways that a sense of the bodily self changes as a result of the potential moving self in relation to one's body. All the aspects of the phenomenology of the sense of proprioceptive and kinesthetic coupling are related to both this inherent self-oriented sense in space and in the present time, and also in relation to perception and action cycles in interactions that together comprise this PKSMCF self-kit. Certainly, the relational features always involve the physical and social world in the first place, and they do not require internal comparison between B formats, so internal models. So here we can see this kind of PK self in action. And our other proposed distinction with the PK-SMC self-ecological. Proprioception has been largely described either as a subconscious process, as mentioned previously in relation to B formats, in that it does not typically require directed awareness or attention or even doubted regarding its perceptual nature. Proprioception coupled with kinesthesia, as we are proposing, as a form of awareness or as a perceptomotor skill that can be developed throughout the life of the organism. You can learn it. We emphasize the interactive codependence between PK-SMC self with the ecological environment that shapes specific modes of coupling. Similar to the idea of silence in the context of affordance ecological theory, graviness is associated with the contextual attractiveness of something to a perceiver related to the presence of mastering of this SMCS. It is also a complementary aspect, bodiliness, which refer to how much the perceiver's perceptual awareness will change when the perceiver moves and interacts. The greater these changes, the higher degree of bodiliness. Here we can have an example of this proprioceptive kinesthetic system interacting with a physical environment. And the third one, the PK-SMC's self-other. And this is trying to answer these questions. Can sensory motor contingencies account for processes about social perception? We think we have that answer. In line with this enactive sensorimotor theory, it has been suggested that social perceptions consist of the skillful co-regulation of participatory social interaction. Each person needs to have knowledge of the qualitative dynamics caused by the other's bodily movements, concerning their own possible bodily movements. The mastery, again, this learning process, this continuous learning process of these self-other contingencies provides a PK self-other perceptual experience. For example, when someone is cuddling you. According to the strong position defended in this talk, both social and in these articles, both social and ecological PK perceptions depends on a skillful regulation of interaction with different invariants and qualitative dynamics. In each case, this includes perceiving the air as air or another person as another person. However, in this second form, intentional access or perceptual awareness additionally depend on a complementary skillful response by the other person. Both have to master PK self-other contingencies. If the other agent does not respond appropriately, the PK perceptual experience would be more akin to that of ecological PK perception. So we have here an example from this marvelous Muybridge works. So, well, the conclusions of this research, of this article that I'm going to show you later, from the weak embodiment perspective, it is complicated to extend the neural representation to our peripheral, autonomic, ecological, and social aspects of embodiment. The perspective that we have defended here is a stronger notion of embodiment. We suggest that it is the PK system with its coupling history of interacting and by individuals' personal experience that enables a specific perception action loops, learning to interact and to respond to the world rather than only representing it. Specifically, skilled proprioceptive and kinesthetic coupling plays an important role in the felt perceptual experience of spatio-temporal self-orientation in present action and interactions in ways that are irreducible to be formatted representations. Here is one of the publications that comes from this research with my partners, Andrea Falcón Cortés and Gabriel Ramos Fernandez. And here are some of the references. If you want more specific information, here in this article, you can find it. Thank you very, very much for your attention.